me. And so what we're going to cover today. So today we're going to go through an introduction. I'm going to share a little bit more with this class because of the course of what I'm doing as an entrepreneur and kind of how things are coming together because I'm living it. I left the corporate space 3 years ago and have been running my business ever since. And prior to that, I had supported entrepreneurs for about 15 years, but it was different because it wasn't mine, right? And what I was doing was helping them structure and scale their company. That's really what I'm really good at, is putting all these things together and helping companies grow. And now I'm just doing it for myself, right? So there's unique things about the entrepreneurship journey that are very different from working for somebody. And so I'll share that along the way. And so we'll cover that as we kind of introduce what the entrepreneurship experience is in today's lecture. And then at the very end, we'll go through deliverables for this course. This course does have an end course team project. So I'll go over some details, team assignments, and that kind of thing. We'll go through takeaways, and then we'll close it out. So that's how we're going to structure. Each lecture will be structured very similarly each time. So what is Management Q? So I'm going to start by sharing a little bit about my company because as we talk about entrepreneurship, you'll understand where I'm coming from. So I need to set this kind of foundation. So who we are as a company is we're a scientifically tested, neuroscience-informed management training approach. And these results on the side are what we were able to achieve with our clients. So you could see they're crazy awesome. These results were actually based on EEG brainwaves. We actually had our clients tested by neuroscientists and neuroengineers who proved that our program creates these types of results, right? So my program was designed through real-world application, the experiences that I had as an operations leader in the workforce, and as somebody who knew how to grow teams and grow leaders, right? So there's something about what I do that gets people activated. And so I decided to take that approach and turn it into a methodology and create training programs around it. And so that's what I've done. So the focus is on how managers think, decide, act in real time, right? So I'm a very tactical person. I like to get my hands dirty. So when it comes to training in the workforce, I like to move away from theory and focus on what people are actually living through. So we turn everyday management experiences to repeatable, effective habits, and that's what my company does. So as you'll learn in today's lecture, part of entrepreneurship is solving a problem or identifying a need. So what problems do we fix as a company? So what we fix as a company is we fix generic training. For me, as a professional, as an executive making decisions around what type of training to bring to the workforce, I was bored. I felt like it was lame, and I felt like most people didn't learn much, and it didn't address their individual gap. And so for that reason, I wanted to fix that. I also decided to solve for the fact that learning doesn't happen the same way for everybody, and we don't know if people are learning unless we really know if they're learning and if we're measuring it. Managers, to me, were being promoted without the right support. We're being promoted without the right tools, sometimes never even receiving management training specifically for that function ever, right? Then I started to do market research, which I'll talk about more, which validated my feelings, my own experiences. The other thing that we wanted to solve for was high stress. Hello and welcome in Zoom land, I see you, okay? So we wanted to fix the high stress and overload that managers felt. In my experience, managers weren't as excited as I was. They were burnt out, they were overwhelmed, and oftentimes didn't fully understand the scope of their role. So this burnout typically caused more risk to the company, definitely caused more turnover, and ended up being really expensive. And at the end of the day, people didn't really understand the cost. And so those were the areas that my company is solving for through our scientifically proven effect training, right, to minimize those things. So there's a lot of people doing training in the corporate world. That's not what makes us cool, right? That's not what makes us different. What makes us different is that we're scientifically tested and proven to work through brainwaves, right? Through actual lived shifts in mindset and shifts in cognitive states, which is a really big deal because there's very few companies that could say anything close to that degree of effective. We're grounded in neuroscience and behavioral science, and we track performance as people are training, which is one of the other things that makes us really different. As they're learning, we're telling them what they're actually doing and if they're growing or not. So the active cognitive states that we look at are stress regulation, cognitive load, which is the effort that you put into something to learn it, to actually retain it and remember it, and of course, attention and retention, which rhymes. We measure how managers respond and make decisions in real time, which is what we need from managers. We don't need them to memorize theory. We need them to be better at their job and make smarter, more effective decisions that have a higher return on investment. So why am I sharing all these things about my company with you? Because we're exploring entrepreneurship, and this is how it starts. So I'm just giving you a sample of what I did as an entrepreneur, what I looked at, what I thought was missing in the environment, and how I solved for it through my company. Okay, now we're going to get into the logistics of the class really quick, now that I've shared a little bit about myself and my company. And keep in mind that I'm going to continue to share about my company and the entrepreneurship journey in this course because of the course topic, right? So here's what to expect in the class. If you want to do well, I'm super transparent, I'm very direct, right? So if you're paying attention, it's easy. If you're not so much, right? So announcements in Gap is where I post anything that you need to know, any updates, any changes, anything that got missed. I post there, including my office hours. If you get behind, please schedule time with me. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I am Westcliff alumni. I know how hard it can get. I know how busy it is. Working, sports, you name it, I get it. I have a nephew that attends Westcliff who's an athlete. I get it, okay? Just talk to me. Spend time with me if you get behind. We will figure it out. I'll go through attendance and what to expect there. And participation. So I treat participation like I would treat you working with me in the workforce, because that's the type of standard you need to live up to in the real world, right? And again, I'm a tactician. I'm an operations leader. That's what I expect of people and the exchanges in our interactions. So participate in chat if you're online. That's the one biggest and most important thing, because that's what I look for. And if you're in class, make sure that you're engaging, you're asking questions. Feel free to be a little sassy and challenge things if you don't agree with them. That's what the real world needs, right? They don't need complicity, right? They need innovation. And if you're in an entrepreneurship class, you need to bring it to the forefront, right? Don't stay quiet. Make sure to share. And then communication. I'll share a little bit about my expectations around communication. Again, I was a student. As I was a student, I was actually dealing with a neurological issue, so I get it. Life can get really hard sometimes. It's important for us to communicate, okay? So if you've never looked at this, just in case, because every professor uses it differently. I use it a lot, okay? So I would say every 2 weeks or so, just take a look under announcements if there's anything that benefits you there. It's intended to help you succeed. It's intended to make things easier. If you've never visited it, this is what it looks like, circled under announcements. So office hours, I'm doing office hours on Thursdays from 9 to 10, but if that doesn't work with your busy schedule, it's okay. I've posted this particular slide under announcements, and it's linked to my actual business and personal schedule, so you're able to select multiple dates. If that doesn't work and you're in a bind or you're scared or something's happening, right, with regard to your grade, just let me know, send me an email, and I will make myself available, okay? Attendance, this is the standard of attendance based on the requirements for the university, so just make sure you stay up to date, that you do your VCS assignments if you miss class. If you need a special accommodation, let me know. I'll let you know what can be done. If it's a really formal need that you have, we'll let the program chair know and go from there. But just make sure you communicate. So participation, like I mentioned, this is what it looks like, right? So participation to me is asking thoughtful questions, looking at two sides of the story. Sharing your own experiences is incredibly important to me, but it's also important to you, whether you realize it or not. When you share your personal experiences, you actually retain more. from a neuroscience perspective, right? And I use this technique with my clients all the time. So challenge ideas, but be respectful. I like a little sass. I like a little, I don't agree with that, right? Good, great, I love that, let's hear it, right? If you really feel conviction around something, aim to build consensus. Make your argument. Take opportunities to present and definitely speak up, provide suggestions. If there's anything you think I could do differently or better, please let me know. And if you're online, absolutely 150% participate in chat, okay? Communication. If there's anything going on in your life, like I mentioned, just let me know. Prioritize your safety and well-being. Like I mentioned, when I was a student, I was going through a whole lot. I also have 2 toddlers because I'm an overachiever. So I was like 2 toddlers, school, and working, right? So I get it. Life can get really hard. You're not doing any of this by yourself. So just make sure to communicate. Okay, that's the logistics of the class. Those are my expectations. If you have any questions, let me know. We're now going to get into the beef of it. We're going to get into the essentials of entrepreneurship. So in this course, what you're supposed to be learning, and you tell me by the end of the course if you didn't learn this, but this is our goal, right? You're supposed to be introduced to the critical knowledge and skills that are needed to navigate an entrepreneurship journey. You're supposed to be learning how to drive innovative initiatives, how to approach business challenges, how to look at it through a lens that has included steps in terms of how to attack it, right? How to frame it, how to approach it, how to get started. So if you're already on the onset of this journey and you're already somebody who's interested in entrepreneurship, this is a great introductory course to that. So we're going to start with the entrepreneurship perspective. So at the beginning of class, if you missed it, by the way, this is recorded, so you can go back. I'm going to post it under announcements if you want to learn a little bit more about my company and what I shared. But the reason I shared it was not just because I wanted to share it. It was also because we're going to start with the entrepreneurship perspective, okay? And that's important because the entrepreneurship journey is unique. It's not like working for somebody by any means, right? And there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of challenge, but there's also incredibly high reward. And so, it's not for everybody. Nothing ever is. So here's what I want to know. I'm a very curious person by nature, which is why I'm doing the type of work that I'm doing with neuroscience. I want to know from you, using the QR code on the screen, if you have your phone, if you could please scan it, and using single words, I want you to describe what is entrepreneurship to you. And if for any reason you don't have a smartphone, you can use chat if you're online. I know it's hard to put things into single words, but when we put things into single words, it means we understand things clearly, right? So it's okay, take your time, no pressure. And you could use simple words like independence, right? Or income. Like whatever single words come to mind when you think of entrepreneurship. Risk taker, ownership. I would put checks next to those. Freedom, yes. One of the things that I've loved about entrepreneurship is that I can attend all of my kids' basketball games because I schedule my clients around that. And it may not seem like a huge deal. To me, it's the biggest deal because I get to be one of the only parents that has gone to every game. And I take pictures for every parent that can't be there. And that's pretty amazing, right? And I share it with them, and I make sure that things are moving, that the kids are taken care of, and that there's a parent there every time cheering them on. So that's something that most people can't do. It's very difficult. right? For parents who are working full-time to do. Flexibility. I schedule my clients around the things that are important to me. I train every morning with my 2 puppies that I just got this Christmas. And I go to the park and I get dirty in the mud, right? That kind of flexibility, man, I can't tell you, I have never been happier to have left corporate 3 years ago, right? Ownership. It was important to me, being first generation in the US, to have an asset, right? And so I'm the first in my family to do everything. To graduate, to have a doctor. I have 4 degrees, right? Yeah, I know, right? Samantha, woo woo, right? I see you shaking your head. I'm the first to own a business. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm the first Latina in the US to have a neuroscience-backed management training. I think. The last time I looked, I think that's correct, right? You guys are the AI generation. I'm sure you could look it up, right? So these are the first. Entrepreneurship, that's what it does. It creates things. It brings innovation, right? And then Samantha said in chat, she just started her freight broker business not so long ago. It's been hard, but very rewarding. Kudos to you, Samantha. Let me tell you, if I would have known and would have trusted my talent sooner, I would have started sooner, but I was scared. But here's the thing, and this is all part of the entrepreneurship experience, because the entrepreneurship experience is not a straight line, right? This is exactly what it is, right? It's hard. It's so much work because it's all on you. But the reward, I can't even tell you. I will tell you, actually, because it's part of this course, right? So thank you for participating. Great job. These are all great things to talk about. So now let's get into the books, just so that we have a framework and best business practice, because it's important to understand that too. It's actually how you prevent mistakes. So the reason I was able to scale my business very quickly in 3 years is because I had worked prior to that with other entrepreneurs. Like I was sharing with Justine in class. For about 10 or 15 years, I've helped other entrepreneurs scale their businesses, which I now learned is very different when it's your business and have less resources and not millions of dollars waiting for you to use, right? But this is all part of entrepreneurship. You could start small, you could start funded, you could start bootstrap. It has so many different ways of working. So what is entrepreneurship? So entrepreneurship is the ability to identify opportunities, take calculated risks, and build sustainable value by solving real problems. So I shared with you at the beginning of class, the problem I'm solving, for lack of a sophisticated sentence, is lame training, right? Like I hate wasting people's time. I actually think people's time is the most expensive thing there is. And so because I believe that, I refuse to waste people's time. So through innovation and sound management and execution, you can do this even in changing conditions, right? So entrepreneurship is quite special. So what is the entrepreneurial perspective? So I just shared a little bit about my experience. Samantha in class is sharing a little bit about hers, which is wonderful. This is what it's like. It's different for everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't look the same for every entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial perspective is the way of thinking and operating that focuses on seeing the opportunity even when others don't, even when it seems uncertain, or even when it's not clear to others. Taking informed risks and creating value through action, right? It's bringing impact and value. That's where you create that jazz, right? It's doing it even with limited resources, right? So that shouldn't be the barrier. So let's break this down. So what does that look like? It looks like scanning for problems that are worth solving, not waiting for perfect conditions. Entrepreneurs are about, let's get in there. Let's do it now. There's a sense of urgency, right? It's acting decisively, even with incomplete information, because it's not about perfection. It's about, let's see if it works, right? It's that mentality. It's balancing innovation with execution, because ideas only matter if they work, right? We're focused on vision and ideas. That's part of that kind of entrepreneurial thing, which honestly, I didn't think I was that person because I love operations. I just love structure and execution, but it turns out I am, right? I ended up discovering that I am. So owning outcomes, learning from failure. Entrepreneurs do not fear failure. They understand it's part of the process. And in leadership, it's called failing forward. You just see it as the next step. It's not going to hold you back, right? It's just, okay, I'm going to change it. I'm going to do it differently. And it's building sustainability over time. It's constantly reviewing, what am I doing? How can I make my business better? How can I have more people pay for it? How can I have people pay more, right? It's that type of mindset. So at the end of the day, it's not just about starting something new. It's so much more than that. It's about how you think, how you decide, and how you lead in dynamic environments. So here are 9 influential entrepreneurs, and some of these you might be familiar with, some you may not. So Jeff Bezos, we probably all know this guy, right? Founder of Amazon, who transformed global e-commerce and cloud computing. That's the standard, right? Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft and a major philanthropist who is shaping tech and global health. Steve Jobs, who can forget Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple. I am sure you don't remember a pre-Apple era. There was one, by the way, where Apple wasn't even a thing, right? Which revolutionized personal devices and design. Mark Zuckerberg, who built Facebook, redefining social networking and digital connection. Sarah Blakely, founder of Space. She's a leader in female-focused product innovation. Whitney Wolfe Herd, founder of Bumble, empowering women in tech and dating platforms. Richard Branson, he is a British-born thought leader, and his global Virgin Ventures and U.S. presence make him influential here. He's that impactful. I'm actually a big fan of Richard. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Alphabet or Google, steering one of the most biggest tech engines around. I can't even think of what we would be doing without Google. My entire company is on their platform, right? Tristan Walker, founder of Walker & Company, who is innovating for underserved markets, right? Are any of these new to you? Let me know in chat if you're in Zoom. Are any of these new to you on the list? Which ones are new to you? You can say the number.
Okay. The one that I know, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And 9.
Okay, so a few. Okay, in chat, let me know. Number 5 is new to you, Samantha. Okay, great job. Okay, and let me know, anybody else on there, which ones are new to you, and then we'll go ahead and move on. Okay, so go ahead and still participate in chat. Remember, that is how I score your participation grade. Okay, so we're going to start with our first in-class activity. Just seeing because you're solo, you can do these activities solo, and then I'll group people online, okay? And that's how we'll get through it. But our first activity is going to be on the entrepreneurial perspective. And this is what we're going to do. I'm going to break you out into a group for the Zoom team, the Zoom World team. And you're going to be assigned an entrepreneur by me, okay? And you're going to evaluate their startup journey, and you're going to confirm what problem the entrepreneur identified. You're going to confirm what risks they took. And you're going to confirm what decision they took that mattered the most in their startup phase. And you'll have 7 minutes to do this research, and then you can select a team member to share what you found. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and time you. So let me go ahead and break out the Zoom people first, and then I'll assign you the entrepreneur. Here we go, and you're going to be just one room because there's very few of you here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create the room. Okay, so we have here open all rooms. So you're in room 1. So the Zoom team, let me show you which entrepreneur you're going to go with. So you're going to do number 3. Okay, so you're number 3, which is Jensen Juan of NVIDIA. Okay, Justine, I'm going to have you do Patrick Collison, number 8 from Stripe. Okay, The timer is going to start now, so you can go ahead and get started.
Hi, Professor.
Hello.
I am in group one. I think I missed the entrepreneur that we're gonna be doing.
Okay, it's you are doing number three.
Number three.
So
Yep.
I room once you go in there.
Okay, and I'm wondering how I can go back into the room.
You should have in the corner, bottom right corner, it should show you a join button.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll go back one slide in case you want to see what to look for. I know how it goes. Remember, you're looking at evaluating the journey and you're confirming what problem the entrepreneur identified, you're confirming what risk they took, and you're confirming what decision they took that mattered the most in their startup phase. Okay, welcome back, welcome back. So we're gonna go ahead and start with room one, which is our Zoom team. Let us know, what did you discover? And you can take a casual approach. Just tell me what insights you found out about that entrepreneur.
Okay, all right. So we got number 3, which is Jensen Huang. The problem identified was that Jensen Huang identified that general purpose CPUs were not efficient or handling complex graphics and parallel computing tasks. As computer graphics and gaming advanced, there was a growing need for specialized processors that could handle large amounts of data simultaneously. The risk taken was that Huang took a major risk by co-founding NVIDIA in 1993 and betting on a new type of graphics processing unit, which is GPU, when the market was uncertain. So the company faced intense competition and just limited funding and just the possibility that technology would not adopt widely. So for us, the most important decision in NVIDIA's early startup phase was focusing on GPUs built around the parallel processing rather than competing directly with CPU manufacturers. This strategic choice later positioned NVIDIA not only as a leader in graphics, but also a key player in AI and high-performance computing.
Yeah, they saw something the rest of the industry didn't, right? And that's part of their success. But it took a big step forward, which was scary because everybody in that industry was doing it different. Great job, room one. Okay, Justine, what did you find out?
I got Patrick Collinson. It just dropped out of MIT, which was a big risk because it's a really prestigious school. And just to go to fintech industry, because he identified that's a big problem, which is online payments were too complicated and slow to set up. And sometimes for many startup, the big problem is the payment and the slow innovation. So he just created Stripe, which is a platform like PayPal, but for entrepreneur, it's really more, it's easier for them. And yeah, it's just simplifying everything for people who want to start a business, because for him, when people want to start business, the big thing is just to have some ideas to what people should create and everything, and just not focus on the payments and calling the bank and just waiting for just the money and the tax, and everything is really complicated. But with Stripe, everything is easier, and just entrepreneurs have more time to do with their business and not with the payment.
Yeah. Did you read anything about the risk? Like, what was the biggest risk that he took? Was it the dropping out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a big risk. MIT is an amazing school, right? Like, it opens the door. So Stripe, I've used Stripe with my businesses. I also owned a payment processing agency earlier on that I didn't like, I was too bored with and didn't want to continue with. But he's right, it was really hard. You needed a formal connection through a payment processor to collect payments on websites. Right now, I still use Stripe. Even though they charge a little bit more than a back-end payment processor would, it's so easy and makes the experience so much easier for my clients. I don't mind paying that little bit more because of how easily it integrates with my website. I could charge things on my phone. When I go to conferences, I could use my phone to charge and literally make money on the spot, right? So huge advantage there with Stripe. So if you're in the entrepreneurial business, I can share a couple of other similar. After Stripe happened, then came different type of banking too. You know, Bluevine is a company that doesn't charge for banking, makes it really easy for entrepreneurs to collect different types of payments through ACH, through different more formal type of banking. So check out Bluevine if you're interested in those types of solutions. So let's talk about an entrepreneurial venture and what that is. So an entrepreneurial venture is the creation of any business organization, project, or operation of interest that includes a level of risk in acting on an opportunity that has not previously been established, right? It's new, you're taking it on, you're knowingly stepping into this risk, just like the entrepreneurs you just researched. So there are different types of entrepreneurs, and that's what's amazing about entrepreneurship, is you have the entrepreneurs that are innovators, and they're finding new approaches, new methods, new products that add value and are helping with solving a problem in a unique way, a different way, right? You have creators, entrepreneurs that are making something new or see a problem that other people have not yet noticed. It's the first time that is being done, right? There are market makers who innovate or reinvent their market from a future perspective by asking them how the market can grow. How can the market be different? How can it evolve? Then you have expanders and scalers. These are entrepreneurs who look at opportunities and want to grow them, want to scale them upon different previously established methods or processes or products. So things that are already established, but they want to make it bigger, more profitable, right? Those would be our expanders and our scalers. So I really liked this particular clip, which I'm going to share with you guys in a minute, on how I became an entrepreneur at 66. Because the other really amazing thing about entrepreneurship is you could be a child. You could be 5 with an idea that works. Or you could be 66 with an idea that works. There is no deadline for entrepreneurship. So let's take a look at what Paul has to share as we're looking at the entrepreneurship experience. Let me know in chat if you can hear it, okay? You should be able to.
I'd like to take you back about 7 years in my life. Friday afternoon, a few days before Christmas, 2009, I was the director of operations at a consumer products company in San Francisco, and I was called into a meeting that was already in progress. That meeting turned out to be my exit interview. I was fired, along with several others. I was 64 years old at the time. It wasn't completely unexpected. I signed a stack of papers, gathered my personal effects, and left to join my wife, who was waiting for me at a nearby restaurant, completely unaware. Fast forward several hours, we both got really silly drunk. So, 40 plus years of continuous employment for a variety of companies, large and small, was over. I had a good network, a good reputation. I thought I'd be just fine. I was an engineer in manufacturing and packaging. I had a good background. Retirement was, like for so many people, simply not an option for me. So I turned to consulting for the next couple of years without any passion whatsoever. And then an idea began to take root, born from my concern for our environment. I wanted to build my own business, designing and manufacturing biodegradable packaging from waste, paper, agricultural, even textile waste, replacing the toxic disposable plastic packaging to which we've all become addicted. This is called clean technology, and it felt really meaningful to me. A venture that could help to reduce the billions of pounds of single-use plastic packaging dumped each year and polluting our land, our rivers, and our oceans, and left for future generations to resolve. Our grandchildren, my grandchildren. And so now, at the age of 66, with 40 years of experience, I became an entrepreneur for the very first time. But there's more. Lots of issues to deal with. Manufacturing, outsourcing, job creation, patents, partnerships, funding. These are all typical issues for a startup, but hardly typical for me. And a word about funding. I live and work in San Francisco, and if you're looking for funding, you are typically going to compete with some very young people from the high-tech industry, and it can be very discouraging and intimidating. I have shoes older than most of these people. I do. But 5 years later, I'm thrilled and proud to share with you that our revenues have doubled every year. We have no debt. We have several marquee clients. Our patent was issued. I have a wonderful partner who's been with me right from the beginning, and we've won more than 20 awards for the work that we've done. But best of all, we've made a small dent, a very small dent, in the worldwide plastic pollution crisis. And I am doing the most rewarding and meaningful work of my life right now. And I can tell you there's lots of resources available to entrepreneurs of all ages. But what I really yearned for 5 years ago was to find other first-time entrepreneurs who were my age. I wanted to connect with them. I had no role models, absolutely none. That 20-something app developer from Silicon Valley was not my role model. I'm sure he was very clever. I want to do something about that, and I want all of us to do something about that. I want us to start talking more about people who don't become entrepreneurs until they are seniors. Talking about these bold men and women who are checking in when their peers, in essence, are checking out. And then connecting all these people across industries, across regions, across countries, building a community. You know, the Small Business Administration tells us that 64% of new jobs created in the private sector in the USA are thanks to small businesses like mine. And who's to say that we'll stay forever small? We have an interesting culture that really expects when you reach a certain age, you're going to be golfing or playing checkers or babysitting the grandkids all of the time. And I adore my grandchildren. And I'm also passionate about doing something meaningful in the global marketplace. And I'm going to have lots of company. The Census Bureau says that by 2050, there will be 84 million seniors in this country. It's an amazing number. That's almost twice as many as we have today. Can you imagine how many first-time entrepreneurs there will be among 84 million people? And they'll all have 4 decades of experience. So when I say let's start talking more about these wonderful entrepreneurs, I mean, let's talk about their ventures just as we do the ventures of their much younger counterparts. The older entrepreneurs in this country have a 70% success rate starting new ventures. 70% success rate. We're like the Golden State Warriors of entrepreneurs. And that number plummets to 28% for younger entrepreneurs. This is according to a UK-based group called CMI. Aren't the accomplishments of a 70-year-old entrepreneur every bit as meaningful, every bit as newsworthy as the accomplishments of a 30-year-old entrepreneur? Of course they are. That's why I'd like to make the phrase 70 over 70 just as commonplace as the phrase 30 under 30. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing, my friend Paul. I'm such a fan of this TED Talk because he's right? We each have something to contribute. So don't ever shut people's ideas down because anybody could be an entrepreneur, right? And I definitely didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. Actually, when I was going to school, the goal that I had was to manage at an executive level. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be the CEO. I wanted to be the VP of something. And that was my goal. But then you know what happened? I graduated, I met the goal, and then I was like, oh, I did it. Now what? He's right also when he says he's doing the most rewarding work he's ever done. I feel that way too. I'm changing how people are learning, and I'm validating and honoring managers' experiences. Right? And to me, that's huge. And I'm doing it through undisputable research and science, which is linked to how we're wired, how our brain is wired. So to me, that is such a powerful thing to me, that's so much more than selling widgets for a company and helping them succeed. I like to think that I'm working on the future of training and changing the landscape of how we lead and manage with a human-centered approach, which has been lacking for a very long time, right? So very powerful words from my friend Paul, and I'm a complete fan of what he has to say, right? So with that said, people often have thought of entrepreneurs as corporate rebels. To be honest, I've always been the black sheep. I've always done things differently since I was very young. They're nonconformists or they're activists. They see something that other people just don't see. Being an entrepreneur has become synonymous with being an innovator, a change agent, a risk taker, right? And some of those words you mentioned at the beginning of class. So what about the lifestyle, right? We talked a little bit about that and the career. What does it look like to be an entrepreneur? Well, entrepreneurship requires a willingness to take those calculated risks, but not blind leaps. Successful entrepreneurs are calculated in the risks that they take. They're selective. They weigh risk versus calculated risk, and they do their due diligence, which means they research, they investigate, they make decisions based on the information they have. They let go of a steady paycheck and they get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And let me tell you, that is the most uncomfortable thing I've ever felt in my life, to not have a secure paycheck waiting for me for 3 years when I have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and a family, right? That part is not fun. It's incredibly stressful, but the reward was so high, and what we were solving was not being solved, and what we were doing was scientifically proven. To me, it was worth the risk, and I was right? So many entrepreneurs reduce personal financial risk by starting on the side, which is what I did. I was the chief operations officer for a company in Orange while I was starting my company. The company knew it. We came to an agreement that I would slowly transition over an 8-month period. And that's what I did. And now I'm just full-time in my company, and then I teach here because it's been one of the most rewarding things has been teaching here. Connecting with students is a very powerful thing. For me personally, it's very rewarding. You maintain current employment while developing the venture. That's very common, right? So that's the way it goes. Gig economy, right? That's where that's happening because people are seeing this opportunity. Outside income provides financial stability during early stages. That is true, right? If anything, I may have drawn it out a little bit longer in foresight. Maybe I would have done it over 2 years versus so quickly, but I have done a lot in 3 years. You transition to full-time entrepreneurship, and it often happens once there's a big venture or a big client, or there's something or you're seeing a return that requires your full-time effort. So for me, once we did the scientific study for our programming, which took place in 2024, we're in 2026, so it wasn't that long ago, right? But once I had that changed everything, right? Once that happened and we started to market the scientific proof behind our concept, small businesses weren't the only ones that were calling. I started to get attention of institutions, of universities, of large corporate clients, right? And so this year, I'm very excited because this year I have clients like Southern California Edison who are talking to me and looking at proposals. I have clients like the Skirball Cultural Center who are going to do for the first time ever a Spanish and English version of our neuroscience approach training, right? So now we have some skin in the game, right? And that was, to me, the sign, right? That turning point. So this infographic is a fun one, but literally this is what life is like for an entrepreneur. It's up and down and up and down, right? One day you're like, today is going to be great, and you're excited. Clients are calling and you're doing great. And then you're like, damn it, what have I done? There's no money coming in, or there's a slow season or whatever. And then something happens that's really exciting. So for me, those peaks, what it looked like last year, I did more keynote speaking on our scientifically proven approach than I have ever done in my entire life. I did 9 in large audiences and conference settings. I would have never thought that that's what I would be doing. Like, never. That was just, it never crossed my mind. But people are seeing the benefit of a different type of approach to learning in the workforce. People are seeing the cost of burnout and stress, and it means something different now, right? So then that moves me back into that strong arm of I can do this. I feel inspired. And after each keynote, I get really excited because almost every single time after that high point, I get people who approach me and tell me, I'm so inspired. I've never seen this kind of learning. We want to try it, right? Or I get, oh my gosh, I can relate to your story, right? Tiny little Latina, right? With this idea. Like there's so many different vantage points of this entrepreneurship journey and story. Or I'm a woman. I didn't realize, like, what is it like? And then I can walk another woman through it, right? There's just so many different things, right? And then you get to the low point again, and you're like, damn it, I'm not succeeding because it's overwhelming or it's not moving fast enough. Common, by the way, common sentiment for the entrepreneur. So literally from one day to the other, I'm like, I'm winning, I'm losing. Why am I losing? I'm winning again. Literally, this infographic says it all. And at the end of the day, those peaks get higher and higher, right? The highlight of this year was starting January with people knocking at my door without me even having to reach out, right? We have 4 or 5 proposals right now with very well-known companies who are looking to take this approach and make it something that they use in their company to develop their leaders. So then I go back to, wait a second, my life is amazing. Like, this is amazing what I'm doing, right? All of this is true of entrepreneurship, and it is absolutely crazy. So, U.S. entrepreneurship and success and survival rates. So entrepreneurship, like Samantha shared, it gets hard. It is hard. It's not easy, right? About 49.2% of new U.S. businesses survive at least 5 years, and only 33.8% survive to 10 years, according to the Small Business Administration, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and data between 1994 and 2021. So again, I'm in my 3rd year, right? So my first milestone is to get to 5 years, but this is what it's like. It's a day-by-day thing. Survival rates vary widely by industry, but overall, only about 34.7% of private sector establishments born in 2013 were still operating in 2023. It's intense, and the competition is hard, right? But some of us like the challenge. Some of us understand that the risk is worth the reward and we're okay with it, right? And that's, again, a matter of gauging it, a matter of experiencing it. Some of the things I've experienced, I never thought I'd be up there speaking in front of people, hundreds of people, and feel as comfortable as I feel now. It was just not a thing, right? So early survival trends. Around 80% of new establishments survive their first year. Okay, so the first year is not the hardest year. Okay, that's the most exciting. Things are happening, right? It gets harder. Failure patterns. 18 to 20% fail in the first year, 50% by year 5, right? And that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Chamber of Commerce summary. So economic impact of startup survival. Survival beyond the early years significantly influences job creation. So that's really cool because it was just me when I got started. I now have 7 experts that work on my team and augment everything we do, make it better. And in 2026, which that's the year we're in, I'm opening up internships to high school and West Cliff students. My company did that. Like, that's crazy, right? And to me, maybe it's the first time any of these students are being exposed to neuroscience, to STEM work. What an amazing thing, right? Okay, with that, we're going to take our first break, 15 minutes, so you guys can unplug, and then I'll see you in 15, okay? So we have less than a minute left. So just gonna ease back in, give everybody their seconds left. I'm sure it's like, I don't know, maybe 40, 30 seconds left. And then we'll resume our lecture. So just get ready to dial back in. Hopefully the reset was helpful. It helps our brains retain more when we get breaks, and so that has to be intentional, which is why I love breaks. All right, so as we heard from my friend Paul in the TED Talk, he has unique demographics around his entrepreneurship experience, right? Well, what about other demographics with respect to the entrepreneurship experience? Well, I can tell you that I'm a unique contributor to that, right? I'm a Latina, first generation. I'm in my early 40s, right? And so we make up a distinct demographic, but each of you does as well, especially if you step into entrepreneurship. So let's explore that a little bit. So what about entrepreneurship by gender? And I think that this is interesting, right? So in the US in 2023, we're now in 2026, women owned 14.2 million businesses with about 2.8 trillion in receipts, reflecting strong participation in business ownership. Women represent a large and growing share of entrepreneurs nationwide. Early data also show women account for around 42.1% of non-employer businesses, those without paid employees, with substantial revenue contributions, right? So making a dent. What about race and ethnicity? Minorities owned approximately 12.1 million businesses nationwide with about 2.3 trillion in receipts compared to employer and non-employer firms, according to census data, right? Which is historical data gathered over time. It's fairly accurate, right? Hispanic owned firms numbered 5.1 million, generating approximately 766.8 billion in receipts in 2021. With non-employer businesses, racial breakdown includes Black or African American owners at 14.5%, American Indian or Alaskan Native at 1.2%, and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander at 0.3% of that total. So if any of you make up any of those demographics or others outside of that, just know you have a contribution to make, right? So Hispanic women entrepreneurs, historical data, right? So I fall into that demographic. So Hispanic women own 1.9 million businesses, employing 550,000 workers and generating 97 billion in revenue, with significant growth over time. So this is important because we need to know how we're contributing to the economy so that the decisions we make the appropriate impact, right? As people, as a group. Okay, so we're gonna do a quick lightning round. And so if you've never done a lightning round before, it goes really quick and it's just to get your immediate thought. Okay, so I know we have only one person in the room and we have two in the Zoom room. Okay, so we're gonna make it work. And the question you're answering, and it's just quick, it's what comes to mind first, is what entrepreneurship fact surprised you the most, or which did you find the most interesting so far? Okay, so I'm gonna go quick. I'm gonna start with Justine.
With example with Paul, it was not young, but it was really brave. Because usually young people are really afraid of that, and all people like don't do that. This is really risky, and you should work for a company. And it was really brave to go against the stereotypes and start a startup at his age.
I agree, super brave, especially when he said all the startups looked like they were headed by young people. That's intimidating. I agree. Okay, Samantha, what was most interesting for you?
Just in general, most successful like entrepreneurs don't actually start out as natural risk takers. So it's really like crazy to see that some people went through, you know, failures in the startup of something big.
Yeah, great point, right? Like I feel like our whole experience right now in the world is based on highlights, right? The highlight reel. So I think what you're saying is super important, Samantha. I think that's not what it's actually like. It's not exciting every day. It's sometimes you want to cry and rip your hair out. That's what's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Lee, how about you?
Uh, to me, I think the most interesting part is the innovation and the risk taking. You don't know what tomorrow's gonna look like, but you still decide to go ahead and do it. You don't know what the market might look like tomorrow, but you still go ahead and just throw in your idea and start something new. Yeah, I think that's what I find the most interesting.
It is. It's very human of us. It is. It's very evolutionary of us. And sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit. That's like AI can't do that. We do that, right? AI doesn't take risk. AI follows patterns, right? It's very human of us to take a leap, right? To land on the moon. This is very human of us. So excellent, Kaylee. Great points. Okay, we already did break. You don't get another one. Okay, the entrepreneur is a problem solver, right? So if nothing else, if you don't remember anything I said today, remember that the entrepreneur is a problem solver. Okay, so opportunity is identifying perspective, right? It's having that perspective. I'm going to find what needs to be fixed, right? One characteristic of a savvy entrepreneur is recognizing the ability to identify a problem from an opportunity identification perspective. So I can tell you that what I've learned is that being a continuous learner makes you a better problem solver. And when I was a student, sitting where you're sitting at, I had an amazing professor in my master's program. He actually is a professor here. And I got to hug him, and he got to be the chair in my doctorate program dissertation. So I'm very connected to Westcliff for a lot of reasons, but Dr. Cami is his name. And we teach sometimes on professional weekends together, and I hug him just as hard every time. Because he said something to me when I was a nervous student, not knowing what step or what risk to take. And he said, you know what, Mayra? He said, you see things very clearly. And one day, that's going to land you somewhere because you're going to solve a problem that you see clearly and nobody else does. And that was maybe 10 years ago, right? And here we are today. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is because I see those things in the students that are in my classes. And they might not see it yet, but I see what he saw in me, which is why I come back and teach. Because there's always that 1%. And the successful entrepreneurs are the 1 to 3% of society, right? You don't have 99% of people becoming entrepreneurs successfully. It's the 1 to 3%, right? So just realize things can be that powerful. So our next class activity is going to be the problem solver, okay? And so you're going to stay in the groups that you're in, and I'll break you out the same way. And then Justine, the Lone Ranger, will do her activity in class by herself. But you're going to identify a current problem facing the U.S., any problem in the United States. You're going to discuss how you would address or solve that problem. And this is just brainstorming. You don't have to be super fancy about it, okay? Just look at it holistically. You're going to take a look at how the problem could be transformed into an entrepreneurial opportunity, right? Where you see a problem, there's always an opportunity. That's the way it works, especially if you have an entrepreneurial lens. And you're going to identify the first 5 steps, so do like 5 bullet points, of what you would take as an entrepreneur. What would you do as what would be your first 5 steps, right? You're gonna have 7 minutes to do this, and then choose one team member to present your ideas. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start the timer. Let me open up the rooms to you guys. Actually, let me see if I need to recreate it here. Maybe recreate. Okay, I'm gonna open up the rooms now. So go ahead, start your discussions. You have 7 minutes. Okay, we're closing the room, so we have about 50 seconds, and we'll start with you, Justine.
Okay, so
Oh, give me a second. Wait till they get back. Thank you. It'll kick them out in like 30 seconds.
yeah.
They're talking about something because they didn't pop out. Yeah, they're gonna wait till they get kicked out. They have 20 seconds. Good, that's a good sign. Okay, that's time. Welcome back. So we're gonna start with Justine, and she's gonna walk us through her problem she identified and how she would approach it. Keeping in mind the U.S. has a ton of problems right now. Okay, so there should be a lot of entrepreneurs popping up in the next few years. Justine, walk us through what you identified and how you would approach it.
Okay, so as an exchange student, I can tell that here especially in California, the transportation are a huge problem, and I want to create a subway and just remove bus. I will create a survey and ask students at school, university, and some workers in companies. After that, we will see if people just want that or just continue driving and take the bus if they don't mind. So we just create a subway just to start in the center of the city, to start if the project is working well and if people are happy with that. And after, if everyone is happy and we make money and everything is really fine, we just create more lines of subway for disadvantaged area. And after the problem will be solved because no one here creates so far a subway only bus exists and like one bus almost per hour, so it's really not convenient. And for students, maybe workers or people they can't afford to buy a car. It's not.
There's so many issues with that. Yeah,
it's a big problem.
Yeah,
it's a big problem.
So I love that Justine said as an international student. So let me tell you, there's probably a lot of Californians who haven't gone outside of California. And I think that's a limiting factor because when you visit the world, right, or when you're from a different part in the world, your lens is really different.
Yeah.
So my family's from Guatemala, very rural, very third world country. So the way I see things is very different from my counterparts, and it has been my whole life, right? So it's interesting, right, what we pay attention to. But Justine said she would put it in the center, right? Think about all the cool places to go in California. California is beautiful. If there was a better, easier, faster way to get there, it would make it accessible to everybody, which is wonderful. It would stimulate the economy. The other thing is we are very wasteful. So everybody has to have a car to get around, right? And the distances are not far, but you have to get a car, right, to get to 15 miles of distance. So that's a very real problem, and I think that would make life very different here, and I think it would be for the better, right? And we've seen it work in other countries. It's interesting why we haven't pushed it, right? But there's a lot of bureaucracy in politics, as you can see. But phenomenal idea. Okay, all right, let's take a look at the Zoom room. Share what you identified and how you would approach it.
Okay, so we found one which is healthcare. It's expensive, as we all know, and it's hard to access for millions of Americans. So, especially for immigrants who face language barriers and just often lack insurance, our solution is a private telehealth platform connecting immigrants with affordable virtual doctor visits and mental health support. We'll partner with licensed providers and just focus on underserved communities to make healthcare simple, convenient, and low cost. The 5 steps as the entrepreneurs. First, we'll research healthcare gaps in immigrant communities. Two, develop just a simple multilingual telehealth app. And third, partner with licensed healthcare providers. Fourth, launch a pilot program in high-need immigrant areas. And just five, market the app through social media for like local community centers and immigrant advocacy groups to reach the target audience and just to get feedback.
Excellent. I love it. The underserved community. So I grew up in the underserved community. My parents were actually immigrants from Guatemala, which is why I'm first generation here. So the need for healthcare is dramatically significant. Most of us who are first generation grew up with parents who not only did not have access and could not afford it, they weren't eligible for any support, right? Which is also a big myth out there in the US right now is, immigrants are taking up all of the resources. They're actually not eligible, right? So my parents ended up paying out of pocket for every delivery of their child. For any visit, we paid out of pocket, right? Until they actually were able to formally get recognized as a resident, right? So this is a need, it's a viable one, it's also a profitable one because it allows us to access providers in different ways. It allows us to take a globalized approach. So great job, room one. You guys are great. You guys are good at this entrepreneurship stuff. There's so many problems out there. And your lens has the solution, right? Somebody who understands what it's like to live through that. The last thing that you said that was really cool was the multilingual approach. I grew up translating for my parents at the age of 5. I can tell you what it did for me. I lost all fear of speaking because I was capable as a young child at reading and writing. So because I learned fast, I was able to translate. And everybody in the neighborhood would say, go to Mayra's daughter. She can translate for you, right? And so I ended up translating for everybody in the neighborhood that didn't speak English. So this is what happens, right? When you're put in a position like that. And Samantha says, I grew up in Mexico and I know they don't have the best doctors and I've seen how many people struggle. Yes, there's a lot of third world countries and we have the resources to access and make a profit and do something good, right? You don't have to compromise profit while doing something good. I think that that's another myth, right? And I think it's about our moral compass and what type of an impact we want to make. And that's up to every entrepreneur, right? Great job. You guys are so good at this. Okay, let's keep going. Great job. Thank you for sharing your personal experiences. It makes learning so much better. So factors driving entrepreneurship growth, right? So things you want to look for if there's going to be opportunity, support, resources for entrepreneurs, you want to look for these things. So you want to look for strong economic recovery and market conditions. You want to look at access to capital. You want to look for technology advancements and innovation, how that area is adopting them and so forth. You want to look at culture of innovation and risk taking. Is it welcome? Is there a lot of support around it? You want to look at the legal and institutional support. You want to look at the demographic diversity and skilled workforce. You want to look at the geography and where structure is needed or where it's happening, right? A lot is happening around AI right now. Policy, incentives, and support programs, and shifts in work preferences and motivations. What are people looking for, right? All of those things you want to look for. So the why is always really important when you're going to take a big risk and you're going to do something that is dangerous, okay? You better be clear on your why if you're going to do something dangerous. So why do people become entrepreneurs when it can be so hard and there's such a high risk of failing, right? Usually it comes down to personal motivations, financial motivations, lifestyle motivations, social and environmental motivations, or situational and external motivation. Our friend Paul in the TED Talk said he got laid off. So then he was like, what am I going to do now? I'm like at the end of my career, right? So for him, that was part of it. For me, I actually had brain surgery 3 years ago. And I had lived with a neurological issue for 5 years. And that issue would create disability in me. Sometimes I was paralyzed for weeks. Sometimes I couldn't even brush my teeth. And so I got that life-altering, changing surgery 3 years ago. And when I recovered from it, I was on a walker and everything. It's incredible. I have pictures and I share it each year on the anniversary in September. After surviving that, I thought to myself, there is nothing that I should be scared of. I just went through the worst of the worst, and I have something to give to the world, right? And so for me, it was that. And then the second thing was, I thought to myself, I lost 5 years of my life being sick and being paralyzed. I want to be there for my kids for this next stage of life, which is high school. So they're in high school right now. And they're very active in social clubs and sports, and life is very exciting for them right now. And I wanted to be there. I didn't want to have to ask permission to go to their games. I didn't want to have to not be there when they needed to get ready for their dances or whatever they needed, right? I wanted to be that parent, and it was really important to me to make that a priority. And so those two things ultimately pushed me to follow through on this need that I had always seen, and I always had the idea, and take it somewhere, okay? So let's look at these. So when it's a personal motivation, it could look like this. It could be the desire for autonomy, right? Wanting to be your own boss, make your own decisions. It could be the need for achievement. Some of us are wired, right, to achieve. Strong drive, you want to accomplish goals. I also mentioned, like, once I got to the executive level, I was like, well, what now? That's it? Like, I'm already here. What else can I do, right? And so you want to leave a legacy. You want to do something of impact. Typically that happens once you start to see a sense of purpose start to arise in you, right? Passion and interest, deep enthusiasm for a particular idea, product, or industry. I've shared, I'm really passionate about managers. Not everybody is, not everybody cares, right? But I'm very passionate about what they can do for others and for themselves, right? Creativity and innovation is a desire to solve problems in new ways or create something original. And then challenge seeking. Some of us just like to live a little dangerously. And I will say that I do like to take risks. I am not risk averse. So I like to do thrill seeking things, right? So attraction to the uncertainty and problem solving is a big part of entrepreneurship. So if that's attractive to you, you just might be an entrepreneur and not know it. So financial motivations, that's always fun. The income potential, you set your own ceiling. Nobody tells you this is how much you're worth. You tell them how much you're worth. That is really exciting, I have to say, right? So opportunity to earn outside of the traditional frameworks in employment. And wealth creation, you can create long-term goals, right, of building personal or generational wealth. Now this business I'm building, I can hand down to my sons. That's a big deal. You can't hand down a job to your family. That doesn't exist, right? Financial independence. You reduce your reliance on employers or external sources of income. You start to feel that financial freedom, which really changes the game for everybody, especially if you're first generation. Lifestyle motivations. Flexibility. You control your working hours, your location, your work-life balance. My entire team is remote. We go to clients when we train, but the rest, we do remotely. My team, they love it. They work from home and do amazing work. Then we get together every quarter and do amazing things in person together. Work satisfaction, pursuing work that aligns with personal values and passions. There's nothing better than something that feels good because you're doing good and it works and you're making money. That combination is crazy awesome, right? Freedom to pursue interests. You can travel, you can take time off, you can whatever, right? You can structure it. Social and environmental motivation. So I am somebody who really cares about nature. I feel really connected. I always have. My family came from very rural areas in Guatemala, so I always joke with my husband, right, that I'm a jungle woman. I'm connected to trees and nature and animals and wildlife, and so I seek it out. I love going into forests. I love going into natural settings, camping, not glamping, camping, getting dirty, fishing. I do all of that stuff, right? So for me, it's important to connect all of these things because they're all part of who I am. So influence and role models inspired by successful entrepreneurs that give back. My company currently gives back to the California Community Center, who is aiding people from the Palisades fires. right, who are affected. We're also supporting Churla with our products, which is the immigration foundation who helps immigrants right now, right? So my products sell, they get a portion of it. That makes me feel amazing as a person. It makes me feel like I'm supporting my values and who I am and where I came from, right? Supportive networks, encouragement from family, mentors, peers, and entrepreneurial communities, and social impact, the desire to contribute to society, create jobs, and solve pressing community problems, right? These are all things that are very exciting. So give me a guess. Scan this QR code and finish the sentence. Zippia, I just hit myself on the TV. Zippia estimates the average age of entrepreneurs in the US is what? Don't Google it, just give it your guess. Okay, so far we have 32. Do we have any other takers? If you can't use the QR code, go ahead and put it in chat. Okay, we got 44, okay. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and give you the right answer, okay? So the right answer is 44. So as of right now in the US, the average entrepreneur is about 44 years old, okay? And I just turned 43 January 4th, so I'm pretty close to that average. Okay, 32, thank you, Kaylee. So situational or external motivations, what are those? So that's economic necessity, right? Our friend Paul from the Tech Talk said, I got laid off. That, and he wasn't getting hired. He was at the end of his career. So sometimes being unemployed is a blessing in disguise, right? Layoff or other financial pressures, right? And push you to be innovative, to be resourceful, to come up with something that you can possibly do. Market opportunities. You see something coming, right? And so you're like, ooh, I can do something there, right? Technological access. There are new tools that make things easier, right? E-commerce was such a big boom. It's such an opportunity because it made business so much easier when it took off. Policy and incentives. Sometimes there's grants that are suddenly made available or startup programs. Small Business Administration sometimes has special grants, that kind of thing can be your open door. And create favorable legal environments for you that make it easier for you to do what you want to do. Okay, so the next activity is called If You Were. So you're going to individually, each person individually, going to pretend, okay, that you're in the process of becoming an entrepreneur. And you're going to check off which of the motivators from our list would apply to you. And I'm going to share the list with you in a minute so you can take a screenshot, okay? You will have 3 minutes, so this is less than 7, 3, to reflect on the options. And each of you is going to share the motivators that would apply to you if you were to seriously consider entrepreneurship. Like, what would move you, right? Okay, so 3 minutes, it's a lot less time. Here is the checklist, so make sure to take a screenshot if you need it. I'm going to start the 3-minute timer, and you're doing this individually, just quietly, okay? Here we go.
Professor?
Hello, it's so nice to see your face.
Yeah, nice seeing you too. I saw your email. I was just I wasn't able to really talk, but I was keeping you by the ear and I was listening to what you said all the time. And I just was wondering, this activity right now, it's not a group, it's a personal, right?
It's individual, yes. So just take a few minutes. You have one more minute and just think about which of these motivators would move you.
Yeah, got it. Appreciate you.
Are you traveling right now?
Yes, but we arrived, but yeah.
Okay, I get it. So I'll have you go first so you can then go on mute, okay?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, and we're at time. So Wanjing, go ahead first. Which of these motivators would be what pushes you to become an entrepreneur?
Um, Hello, I'm Wenjin and I play basketball and I would like to talk about a list of motivators. I think it's really hard to name few because there's a lot of good factors, but mainly for me, it's passion and interest first because I'm seeking my job as a professional athlete. So passion and interest gotta come first, and I really enjoy playing basketball. I really love it. And also, I've been growing up watching Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. So I think they had a big impact on me. And I think it's influence of role models. And lastly, income potential. As a professional athlete, you have a potential to be not only earn a lot of money from the contract, but also having promotions from the brands and from the team. For example, I'm from South Korea, so in Korea, the professional teams they're getting sponsored by big companies, for example, like Samsung. And the players who play for the team that get sponsored by Samsung, they get free insurance, free technology devices, gadgets, and also free support in terms of meal or maybe commuting from the A to B location. So yeah, there's
Great,
three mainly. Yeah,
great top three. Thank you. You can go ahead and mute. Thank you for participating.
yeah.
So
Thank you, Professor.
you're welcome. Okay, so cool things about what Wanjing shared, right? Also, when you're growing up with the type of role models that have that degree of influence, right? Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, passion is something they recurringly speak about, right? Mamba mentality, that changed everything, right? My boys are very much into basketball, so is my entire family. We actually have a professional athlete in our family, Casper Ware, who's currently playing for Russia and has legacy in the LA community, which we as a family support and go back often yearly to give back to the community. So Wanjing's top three, that influence also has a deep impact on your community and culture. So it could be very powerful, incredibly persuasive. It's kind of that inner fuel that keeps you going, especially when times get rough, right? So great breakdown there. Okay, let me hop over to Justine and then I'll hop back to Zoom. What about you, Justine? What would motivate you?
Desire for autonomy, creativity, and innovation, income potential, flexibility, and market opportunities. Because I'm a person who used to travel a lot. I live in 3 countries per year, so it's really difficult to find a work and just stay in one country, in one city,
Yeah.
and so I won't say it's impossible, but almost. And when I was younger, my mom was employee and she was working all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I have some trauma with that because she cannot be with my sister and me,
Yeah.
just going to school or for some competition. So I think for children, it's really important to have the parents when they do something, whatever to sport or education. And I really want to be there for my kids and
Yeah.
to be a huge support for them.
Yeah, yeah. So a good balance. You're very similar to me, to my balance and my motivators. I can tell you that I was that kid too, me and my brothers. I'm the only girl, so I'm like the queen, right? And I'm the oldest. I'm also the oldest. So we did things, we were in activities. Our parents were always working. And because there was a culture dynamic of what it was like to be American, what it was like to be Guatemalan, and my parents were still learning about US systems and what it was like to be an American, that adjustment, it was really hard on us. And so for me, that was one of my drivers, right? I didn't want to make the same mistake, whether it was intentional or not. I know they had to work hard to accomplish what they needed to accomplish here. But we talk about it all the time because now they're retired and they go to all the games with me. So, but it's important to know what motivates you. Okay, Kaylee, let's go with you. What are your motivators?
All right, so I have a few that I do like, but the most important one is the need for achievement. I really feel like I am a very goal-oriented person, so I tend to base everything on achievement. So definitely, I would like to achieve something that's different, something that I feel like I can't do. I like a good challenge. So I always challenge myself to do something different and something that I feel like I'm kind of scared of. So definitely need for achievement. That's a good one. And influence of role models. So I grew up with a dad that was he is an entrepreneur. So he was my support system. He always let me take any kind of risk. Although he knew it might not have been like the smartest thing to do, but he would actually let me do whatever I want. This way I could actually learn from it. That and also passion and interest. I want to be happy in my life. Yes, good money, good income is great, but I feel like happiness really is the most thing that actually it matters a lot to me. So yeah.
Great list. You guys have great reasoning and great thoughtful lists. So I can tell you money isn't everything. I had the most money when I was living through my neurological issues and I was the most unhappy, right? And so I think now I have no ceiling, so now I'm just growing, and hiring people and just creating this really great thing. But like you, Kaylee, I like a little danger. I like making mistakes and learning from them. And I think it's wonderful that your dad allowed you to participate in the falling forward process because sometimes culturally or sometimes just because there's a lack of experience with making mistakes, the response is punishment. And I know that that was true for at least culturally for us in our family. It was hard for us to get freedom in those areas. And so I don't know if anybody else can relate, but if you can relate in chat, say I can relate. But that's why I was always the black sheep because I was always taking risks and being crazy, right? And I still am that way. And I'm very fortunate that my husband likes my crazy, right? Because if not, poor guy, I am constantly taking risks. Okay, Samantha, last but never least, what are your motivators?
Okay, so I have a few. List the motivators, income potential, financial independence, of course, and just mostly flexibility as being your own boss. It's just you could create your own schedule and just influence of role model and just social network. As a freight, broker with experience connecting shippers and just carriers efficiently, I'm like launching my own logistics business to provide faster, more reliable, and cost-efficient freight solutions. So beyond just building a successful company, I'm very passionate about inspiring young women to pursue entrepreneurship like you as well, and just take calculated risks and follow their ambition in industries like logistics that are often male dominated. Because as we all know, freight brokering in the trucking business is mostly male. So,
Yeah.
I want, with my knowledge and with the network and just the drive, I want to aim to create a business that just delivers results and just flexibility and just grow for both my clients and my team. So very much around, wealth creation as well, of owning my own business and just creating and building a long-term wealth, since I did see my dad grow up, as an immigrant trying to build up his company. So I want, later generations to not go through that struggle as well and have something built for them.
Excellent. Yeah, you guys, wow, deep thinkers in the class. Small but mighty, this group. I love it. Okay, so amazing. So just so you know, Samantha, all of the industries I led in were male dominated. I actually have a logistics background, and I had my experience in leading in manufacturing, legal, IT, and franchising, all male dominated, right? So I can tell you that we have some ground to break, right? You're
Yeah.
not alone, sister, but you know what? We bring something different to the table, and that's what we have to capitalize on, right? So great deck. You guys are just powerful, man. Let's create some businesses together. But let me tell you, this is why you want to make sure you link up and create a network. Even in this classroom, if you really are interested in entrepreneurship, I always invite people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I've actually even mentored students through negotiations, promotions, whatever, right? I'm open. It's up to you as an entrepreneur to grab hold, right? So, and entrepreneurs around the globe. In the United States, entrepreneurial opportunities abound, relatively speaking, right? We empower entrepreneurship, right? In the United States, between 1990 and 2014, the number of campus-based entrepreneurship education programs increased from 180 to over 2,000. So when I was in school, there weren't any entrepreneurship programs. That's how old I am. That there weren't any entrepreneurship programs. It was like a hidden thing, right? Comparing globally, the United States has the greatest number of entrepreneurial ventures, with Switzerland, Canada, Sweden, Denmark, and Australia following in that order. According to the Global Entrepreneurship Index, from a global consulting firm. So the graphic kind of shows where that index is measuring it. And so that's the index, and it stands for Global Entrepreneurship Index. So if you want to see what environment is best positioned maybe for your idea, that's a good starting point, good reference point. So social entrepreneurs, right? So a social entrepreneur has an interest in solving a social, environmental, or economic problem. A social entrepreneur identifies a problem with a social or community focus. The healthcare access to underserved immigrant populations, that's a community focus, right? And it's a concern for quality of life or concern for an entire planet's health. So here are some notable social entrepreneurs in case you're not familiar. We have Mohammed here. He's a founder of Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, pioneer of microfinance and microcredit. He's helping people escape poverty. How amazing is that? I have a very philanthropic heart, by the way. I also started a nonprofit 8 years ago, but I've done a lot of things. Again, I'm a little crazy. Blake, founder of Tom Shoes. I love Tom Shoes. Raise your hand in chat if you love Tom Shoes. Introduced the 1-for-1 model, donating a pair of shoes for every pair sold. I love that. I will shop there forever just because of that, right? Jacqueline, founder of Acumen, invests in social enterprises that tackle poverty in developing countries. Layla, founder of Samasource, provided digital work and training to people in marginalized communities worldwide. In first world countries, we take a lot for granted. There's a lot that can be done outside our bubble. Scott, founder of Charity Water, focused on bringing clean and safe drinking water to communities. And I cut off the words there, so I don't remember which ones they were, but social entrepreneurs. And then you have serial entrepreneurs. Okay, a serial entrepreneur is a person who repeatedly starts and runs multiple businesses, often moving on to new ventures after establishing or selling previous ones. So serial entrepreneurs just like to start, get profitable, move on to the next venture, right? They're not necessarily focused on one thing that they want to grow forever and ever, right? And so maybe you're a serial entrepreneur. But here are some key points around serial entrepreneurship. They are experienced in launching startups and navigating the challenges of early stage business. So they understand like from 0 to 100, right? And operationally, that's where I'm the strongest. I know how to scale companies, right? Because I've done it for other people. This is the first for-profit business I've started, and I've started a nonprofit. Serial entrepreneurs often learn from past successes and failures. They just learn quickly. They make mistakes fast, they pick themselves up fast, and they apply their knowledge to their ventures. Their motivation may include innovation, financial gain, or solving new problems, rather than long-term management of a single business, right? So their focus is to get many under their belt to build a portfolio. So an example that everybody is familiar with is Elon Musk. So what I think is interesting about Elon Musk is that I've seen so many people think that he's invented the stuff. He mostly has not invented any of it. He's acquired it and then has somehow managed to scale it and then sometimes fail it, right? Sometimes sink it with his type of leadership. So it's interesting, but he is very much a serial entrepreneur, right? But getting to know him and whether he should actually get the credit for inventing is a good question for you to look into. Okay, so business structure options. And we're at an hour left, okay? So hopefully you're not dying on me. I know 3 hours is a long time. But we're gonna look at business structure, and this is really important. If anything, I think that if you're getting started with a business, understanding business structure is where you prevent costly mistakes in the future, and you're able to scale a lot quicker when you understand this part, okay? And this is not the fun part. We did the fun part. This is the not fun part. It's the legal part. So a business structure is a legal and organizational framework that defines how a business operates, how it is owned, and how it is taxed. This is really important. It determines your liability, your obligations in terms of tax, your decision-making authority, and your regulatory requirements. This is where a lot of entrepreneurs, especially if they're younger, make mistakes, right? So this is where they lose the battle. So there are different types of business structures. There's sole proprietorship, there's partnership, there's a limited liability company, an LLC, corporation, and a cooperative, right? So let me know in chat which ones you're not familiar with. And then Justine, I'll ask you. Are any of these structures you're not familiar with?
The first one.
The first one? Okay. Corporation, question mark? Okay. We're going to break them down. So by today, you're going to know, right? You'll be experts. Okay, here we go. So sole proprietorship. That's when it's owned and operated by one person. The owner has full control, but also full personal liability. It's simple to set up and it's taxed just like your personal income. So it's very simple, but you're taking on all the risk, right? A partnership is owned by 2 or more people. Partners share profits, losses, and liability. It can be general, which means all liable, or limited, where you split the liability based on a percentage, okay? Limited liability company, an LLC. This is what my company is right now. It's an LLC. It combines liability protection of a corporation with tax flexibility of a partnership. The reason I did it was I didn't want to take on personal liability. I knew that I was going to grow it. So I knew that it wasn't going to be a small, tiny business. I knew that I was positioning it to scale. And I wanted to have the tax flexibility around it. That was really important for me, and I understood it. So the owners, I'm 100%, I haven't split the ownership with anybody yet, but I might in the future with my employees, actually. I might turn it into an ESOP. We'll talk about that later. Generally, not personally liable for your business debts, right? So anything the company does, if something goes wrong and it goes bankrupt, it won't affect my personal side, okay? A corporation. It's a separate legal entity from the owners. So like an LLC, it's separate from you personally. It has owners, they're considered shareholders. Okay, so it can have multiple owners, right? They have limited liability, which means that they can't be sued personally. Okay, the company gets sued, it ends there, right? If something goes wrong. They can raise capital by issuing stock, which means they could sell shares. So these are the companies that have like 100 owners, right? Each person bought $20 shares, whatever, right? Subject to corporate taxes, or they can pass through a tax exemption if they're an S corp. So my LLC is also an S corp. So I was very strategic with my taxation because I just knew what I was doing. I understood it. This is why you need to understand it, right? A cooperative or a co-op is owned and operated by members who use its services. The profits are distributed among the members. So this is important because I can tell you, my dad early on tried to start a business, but he had no idea what business structure was like in the US. And so they failed, and they failed quickly. And unfortunately, I was a baby there, and he didn't know that he was going to have a doctor daughter, right? Otherwise, he would have stayed and waited. But this is where you can help people, right? By knowing these things. You can be a consultant in these areas. People still need a lot of help with business structure. So which business structure do you think is most common in the US?
LLC?
Okay, we got an LLC vote. Any guess, Justine?
Maybe partnership.
Partnership, okay. Okay, we have here. Oh, good question, Kaylee. I'll answer in a second. Okay. LLC. Okay, so actually the most common is a sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship. And the reason why I think it is because it's the least complicated. Once you start looking at the other structures, you have to understand tax. And you have to understand how it benefits you. And unless you have the privilege of education, like you fine folks do now, you don't know these things. And you learn by making mistakes. And sometimes the mistakes bankrupt you, which is what happened to my dad and his partner. And they were both immigrants. They invested the money they had saved, but they had no knowledge of business structure. And at the time, there weren't as many resources. Now you have the SBA, which has all kinds of stuff. And you have other organizations, nonprofits even, that will help you. And you have incubators in your own schools that help you. Like, that's all true. It wasn't true 40 years ago, right? Which is when they tried it. So the difference between a corporation and an LLC, great question, Kaylee. So they're both corporation structures. The difference is how they're taxed and who owns what, who has the authority, and how that's broken down. Those are the main differences, but they're both considered corporates, like corporations. Did that answer your question? Let me know in chat if I answered your question. I want to make sure. Okay, yes, okay. Okay, so establishing business purpose. So with everything we've discussed today, purpose is a theme, right? Knowing your why, knowing what motivates you, all those things are a really important part of entrepreneurship. But it also helps you with your business structure, because what you want to achieve is part of what you should consider when you're selecting your business structure. And you can change your business structure at any time. So let's say you're an entrepreneur right now and you started your business as a sole proprietor because it was the easiest and that's all you knew. Or let's say you started your business and didn't even know that you have to set up a business structure. Let's pretend, right? That's okay. Now you know, right? Get the most of it, get a little bit more strategic. But start with your business purpose. Don't start with the business structure. A clear understanding of your business purpose helps you direct your path as an entrepreneur, and then you can select what's best for you. I knew I didn't want to take on personal liability. That was a big deal for me because I've seen that go wrong in the real world when I was working with other entrepreneurs. I knew I wanted to keep things very separate because it's the way I like to do things. I like very separate, clean things. Organized, very separate, and I didn't want to put risks on my husband in our personal life because he was going to kill me, right? He's like, you're crazy. So I knew those things were important to me, to my experience. So the LLC with an S corp filing structure was perfect, and it still is right now. The business purpose is the reason the entrepreneur forms the company. That's your purpose. Why are you forming it? What do you want to achieve? Who is it going to benefit? Whether it is the entrepreneur, the customers, or some other entity, you have to think about these things. So how to choose the right business structure. So here's how you go about it. Take a screenshot if you're an entrepreneur, because this is how you do it right? This is how you prevent risking your business and what you've built. Determine your goals. So what is your goal? Consider the liability. Like, what are you comfortable taking on in terms of liability? Evaluate the tax implications. I think that's the hardest part. If you haven't done business and you don't know tax law, okay, and I have a legal background, so it's not fair, I'm cheating, okay? I also have a lot of friends that are CPAs, and I can ask a question to, and I know they'll be honest with me, right? So review your tax implications and what works better for you. What can you get the most out of? Consider management and control, like who should be making decisions and why. And plan for growth and investment. What does growth look like for you? Does growth for you look like doubling revenue, or does it look like hiring 2 more people? Those are both growth. And as an entrepreneur, you have to decide what you want to do, right? And review regulatory requirements. Whatever you're doing, the industry-specific regulations are important, and you have to see if that aligns with the structure that you need. Look at your competitors. How are they structured, right? And last but not least, consult with professionals. I have quite a bit of experience, but I don't know everything. And I'm okay with that. When I don't know something, I ask my network. Hey, is there anybody that knows how to do this? Hey, is there a better way to do this? Hey, can I make more money with this breakdown? If you don't have a network like that, you need to start building it now. Start with your professors. Start with your professors. It's the easiest, best way ever to do it. I did it. They're still my network. I still go to them. I'm like, hey, have you run into this? It's wonderful. Determine your goals. Are you looking to retain full control, or are you open to sharing ownership? I'm not currently open to sharing ownership because I want to have a master plan later, and I want the people who help me build the company be shareholders later. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Do you plan to raise capital from investors? I don't personally, I'm not looking into capital investment at this time because I don't want to give up equity, and I don't want to give up control, and I don't want to give up a scientific solution to people that don't represent my community, right? So I have very specific reasons why I'm not looking for investors, even though we've been approached more than 3 times already, right? So are you focused on long-term growth or a small-scale operation? I'm looking to do long-term growth and then maybe do a successful exit, right? That's my plan. So think about your plan. Consider liability. How much personal liability are you willing to assume? I wasn't willing to assume any, or at least mitigate it. I wanted to mitigate it. So sole proprietorship partnership, you're liable for the debts, for anything that you get sued for, you're liable. The LLC or corporation offers personal liability protection for the owners. It sticks and mostly lands with a business. So you want to evaluate the tax implications. Some structures have pass-through taxation, which means profits are taxed on the owner's personal income tax return, like a sole proprietorship, partnership, or S corp. I just have an addendum on our tax return. Makes it easy. And if we scale and get bigger later, I'll do it differently. But for now, that works and it's very easy and very clean. Others are taxed separately as a corporation, potentially leading to double taxation of profits and dividends. That gets a lot more complicated, right? The law changes when you're dealing with shareholders and all these other components of your structure. Consider your income expectations and how taxes will affect your take-home profits. For us, it's been amazing, right? It made a difference. And I just did my financial review of all 3 years, and I was very proud of myself. I was like, well, this is cool. Consider management and control. Who will make decisions? Sole proprietorship, you make all the decisions. Partnership, you share decision making. Corporation, typically board of directors manages major decisions. So for me, I'm an LLC, so I'm structured like a corporation, but I'm 100% shareholder right now. So I'm still making all the decisions, and I plan to continue to do that for a little bit, maybe for 5 years. And then I want to open it up to maybe make it an ESOP where people own, they work for me, but they own a share of the company. And so that's important to me. Part of our vision and mission is accessibility to the community of this proven work that's scientifically backed. So there's a whole thing there, but I'm clear on what kind of I'm looking for. Plan for growth and investment. If you intend to seek investors or go public, a corporation or LLC may be more attractive. For small family-run businesses, a sole proprietorship or partnership may be enough because your exposure just isn't that big, right? And what you're looking to do isn't that big. You're not looking to scale, right? You're not looking to go big. Review regulatory requirements. And I see Kaylee. I love the idea of giving your employees stocks in your company. Thank you, Kaylee. I love that idea too. We've done such amazing work. And throughout this course, you're going to learn a little bit more of the things that we're doing just to lend to the learning, but it's really amazing. They've helped me as much as I've helped them, and it's a wonderful thing. So some business types require more paperwork and formalities. Corporations have annual reports, bylaws, and shareholder meetings that they have to have. Sole proprietorships and partnerships are usually a lot simpler, right? They kind of sit and stay with one or two people. So consult professionals. Speak with attorneys, speak with accountants, find one that you trust. It's really important to understand legal liability, tax obligations, and compliance requirements. California is different from other states, right? So it's important to understand how your state operates. So here's a quick reference guide. I encourage you to take a screenshot of this, especially if you're going to stay in business, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, because this is what people get wrong all the time, and they don't understand the differences between the structure. So I will be uploading this deck under announcements, but I suggest you take a screenshot. Okay, I'm going to move on. Here we go. Okay, so we're at 4, so I'm going to skip the rest, and we're going to get into next week, okay? So hold on. Here we go. Week 1 deliverables, okay? So you're going to be reading chapter 1 and chapter 13, which is going to cover a lot of what we talked about today. Okay, so you're going to hear a lot of the same. And in terms of deliverables, you guys have quite a bit. So there is a team project for this course. You have your DQs, so have your initial reply. I know it says Thursday, and I know today's Thursday, but the initial reply will be due on Thursdays, okay, by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The peer replies are due Sunday, okay, and then you have an entrepreneurial story assignment, which is an individual assignment, and you need to sign the TCA NDA, okay, which is a non-disclosure agreement, because Westcliff, if you don't know this, has an entrepreneurial center. And they deal with angel investors and pitches, and they do all kinds of entrepreneurial work. And part of being in this class is participating in one of those pitch sessions. Okay, not you pitching, but being there as part of the audience. It's part of the, I think, week 3 assignment, if I'm not mistaken. So make sure you get that in. Your team project, team selection has already been set up by me for those students that are currently enrolled. It's posted in the announcement section. Okay, so make sure you look, you'll know what team you're on. That's going to be the team that you're going to be presenting with at the end week 8. Okay, and you want to review your team project prompt. So here's your company discussion question, and you're going to be looking at entrepreneurship and capitalism. So pay attention to the prompt, make sure you look at the rubric, and then your individual assignment is an entrepreneurial story assignment. And we all know some sort of entrepreneur, or it could be a mom and pop owner, right? So base it on that, okay? And if you have any challenges, just let me know. But think of somebody that you know that is in the entrepreneurial space. Okay, and here's what you need to know about the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement. As part of your individual assignment due in week 3, and this is a required assignment, okay, so this is important. You're going to participate in one of these pitch events. They take place twice every month on Wednesdays from 9:30 a.m. to 12 via Zoom. Okay, so it's not a physical place, it's Zoom. And you want to incorporate it for your week 3 as part of attending a pitch assignment to pay attention to some of the things we talked about and how entrepreneurs are positioning their concept, right? So make sure you look at that. And if you're not able to attend it live, right, there is a recording available. The signed NDA is still required as part of the assignment. Okay, so you still have to submit it. Okay, so pay attention to those instructions in the syllabus. Okay, now let's talk about the team project, and then we're done for today for our first session. Okay, so hopefully I kept you alive. So the week one, right now this week, is going to be getting familiar with who your teammates are, which again, it's posted under announcements. Connect with your teams. I'm going to be sending you an email tomorrow morning with their emails. Okay, review the syllabus, make sure you look at the grading rubric, and then contact me if anybody is non-responsive or if something is not working. Do not wait till the last week because I will tell you that you didn't communicate with me earlier. Okay, so just make sure you're honest. I understand sometimes it's awkward to be very direct. That's what real world is like. So we're going to treat this like we would in the real world in a working environment. So make sure to read the prompt for the project. So in this course, you're going to have the opportunity to create and design a startup business concept. So this could be really great, especially if you have a working idea. That's an easy way to kind of get feedback, structure it out, and get some support behind it. Or a completely new thing that you design with your team, whatever you want. You're going to research, you're going to find supportive sources, and you're going to analyze it through the collection of data. You and your group are going to share your conclusions in week 8, right? And you're going to make sure that you understand that you need to share the concept with me, okay? And then I'll say, yes, it's good, let's go ahead, and then you start working on it. This project has 2 parts, so I want to be very clear. It's outlined in the syllabus, but I know that this is a lot to read, right? So in part 1, you're using the startup business your team has selected, and it has to be approved by your professor. And within your team of 3 to 5 individuals, you're going to use this guide for the team project. So you're going to create the startup business idea. Each team member will play a role, right? So each of you has to be a CEO, a CO, a CFO, and you're going to focus on that area. And you're going to create a business plan. Okay, that's what you're creating. And the business plan has to include these sections, which, by the way, this is what investors expect to see when you're asking for an investment, a business plan. That's the first thing they ask for, right? So that's what you're putting together. And use visuals, charts, graphs to support your idea. And then you're going to develop part 2 is the presentation that you're going to give in week 8. Okay, and so that has the areas in the syllabus of what it needs to consist of and how many slides. It has to be 15 slides. And every single person on the team has to present. Okay, so that's the first initial overview. We're done. Okay, do you guys have any questions, concerns? Okay, was this a good first class? Thumbs up or thumbs down in chat?
Yes.
Justine, thumbs up?
Yes, really good class.
Okay, Wanjin, you're surviving. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you for showing your face. Okay, we're done for today until next time, okay? You guys take care. Ask me any questions if you have any via email, okay? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you,
You're
Professor.
welcome. Have a lovely evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.